lives. Meanwhile, thousands of people have rallied in Canada to show their solidarity with the native rights movement IdleNoMore. Protesters packed a shopping mall in Edmonton, in the capital of Alberta province. Organizers said more than 2,500 people had gathered there. The Indigenous communities, also known as the First Nations, have been protesting against their poor living conditions and high unemployment rate. A few days ago, First Nations chiefs met with Prime Minister Harper, but leaders said progress made in the meeting was not enough to stall the protest campaign. To discuss that a bit further, we're now joined by Joshua Blakeney, Press TV's correspondent, who is joining us now via Skype from Calgary. Now, Joshua, tell us what exactly Native leaders want to happen now. They've said that whatever occurred in the meeting was not enough to stop their protest movement.
Well, indeed, I think it isn't completely accurate to characterize the IdleNoMore movement as being solely Aboriginal. That is a component of it. But I think what's interesting is that you're beginning to see ordinary Canadians who perhaps in the past didn't identify with the plight of Canadian Aboriginals, beginning to identify with Aboriginal peoples, because now the ordinary Canadian middle-class people are seeing themselves as also being victims of oppression, namely via this highly controversial Bill C-45, which is an omnibus bill. Now, one of the, some would say, fascistic traits of the Harper government is that they're trying to force through and ram through Parliament radical changes to almost every aspect of Canadian society. And that's what's happening with this omnibus bill. An omnibus bill addresses a diverse and unrelated array of laws and topics in Canada, only one of which is Aboriginal rights, which is why obviously the Aboriginal community have mobilized in recent weeks and months. So I think just as the Aboriginal people in recent years and decades have not been consulted fully by the Crown and by the Canadian government, now Canadian people are also not being consulted with, and that's why you see thousands and thousands of people amassing throughout Canada ubiquitously in order to protest the Harper regime, which of course we know now was proven to have engaged in election fraud in order to seize a majority of seats in the Canadian Parliament. And so it's not inaccurate to say that we've kind of gone through regime change in Canada, perhaps comparable to that of Chile, or what often we've seen in the past when countries are too democratic in the Americas, that there's been a kind of regime change implemented. And so I think that's what's happening, is that the Aboriginal community too are not just standing up per se for Aboriginal rights. I mean, obviously they want to defend the historic rights that they've won, but they're also just trying to defend Canadian sovereignty and Canadian democracy, what's left of it, from this
Joshua, I do apologize for having to cut you off, but it seems that we have run out of time. We'll have to leave it there for now, but of course we do appreciate your insight. That was Joshua Blakeney, Press TV's correspondent, speaking to us live via Skype from Calgary. Well, that's all from me for the moment. Don't go anywhere though. Reza's up next with Sports International.
Thank you for that, Well, I'll be back in just a few moments with all the details from the Australian Open, so do stay tuned. Up next, Sports International.